I used to joke that my sister wanted to be me. Same haircut, same clothes, same hobbies. People thought it was cute. I thought it meant she admired me. But admiration doesn't slowly replace you in your own life. And the day my boyfriend called her instead of me was the moment I realized something had been happening for years, right in front of me, and I was the only one who hadn't seen it. If you enjoy emotional storytelling about family, betrayal, and real-life relationship drama, subscribe to Marian Tales and join our daily story family. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I always love seeing how far these stories travel. Because this story didn't start with betrayal. It started with something that looked like love. My name is Elena. I'm 31 now. My sister Lena is 3 years younger than me. Growing up, people described us using the same sentence every time. Elena is the stable one. Lena is the free spirit. It sounded harmless. But labels follow you longer than people realize. I was the planner. Good grades, part-time job, organized life. Lena was emotional, creative, unpredictable. If she forgot homework, teachers smiled. If I forgot something once, people asked if I was okay. I didn't resent her. Honestly, I protected her. When she cried over friendships, I stayed up listening. Being needed felt like love. Looking back now, that dynamic planted the first seed. Because Lena didn't just look up to me. She studied me. It began small. I dyed my hair dark brown during college. 2 weeks later, Lena showed up with the exact same shade. I laughed. "You're copying me." She grinned. "You always pick good things." It felt sweet. Then I started journaling regularly. Suddenly, she was posting online about discovering journaling. I joined a yoga studio. She signed up there too. Same instructor, same time slot. Friends joked about us being twins. And I never questioned it. Because sisters share things right. The first uncomfortable moment happened at a family gathering. One of my cousins hugged Lena and said, "Elena, I loved your new photography page." Lena didn't correct her immediately. She just smiled. I laughed and said, "Wrong sister." Everyone laughed too. But later that night, I noticed Lena scrolling through my Instagram for a long time. The next week, she created her own photography page. Same aesthetic. Same caption style. Even similar profile colors. I told myself I was imagining things. Around that time, my life felt stable. Good job in marketing. Nice apartment. Healthy routine. For the first time, I felt proud of myself. And strangely, that's when Lena started appearing everywhere in my social circles. She'd message my friends directly. Join group dinners I mentioned casually. Show up at events I invited her to once, then continue attending without me organizing them. People liked her instantly. She was charming. Funny. Soon friends would say things like, "Lena told us you were stressed lately." Except I hadn't told Lena that. Not really. It felt minor. Easy to ignore. But something subtle was changing. She wasn't just joining my life. She was narrating it. Then I met Daniel. He was calm, thoughtful, easy to talk to. For the first time, I felt emotionally safe with someone. After 3 months, I introduced him to my family. Lena hugged him like they already knew each other. "Finally," she said jokingly, "someone good enough for my sister." Everyone laughed. I noticed how quickly she connected with him. But again, I interpreted it as warmth. I was proud they got along. Until small things began happening. Daniel mentioned once, "Your sister told me you hate confrontation." I frowned. "I never said that." He shrugged. "Maybe I misunderstood." Another time he said, Lena said you get overwhelmed when plans change. Again, not true. Not exactly. It felt like she was describing a softer, weaker version of me. Not lies. Just edited truths. Tiny adjustments. Enough to shape perception. I told myself I was overthinking. One evening, I arrived late to a dinner with friends. When I walked in, everyone was laughing. Lena sat at the center of the table telling a story. About me. Except parts were wrong. She described me quitting a job dramatically, something that never happened. People laughed sympathetically. I corrected her gently. She laughed it off. Oh my God, you're so literal. Everyone moved on. But I noticed something disturbing. The story she told was more entertaining than reality. And people remembered her version. Not mine. That night I lay awake wondering, why did it feel like I was slowly losing ownership of my own story? The moment everything shifted happened on an ordinary Tuesday. I was working late when Daniel texted. Just talked to Lena, hope you're okay. I stared at the message. I hadn't spoken to Lena that day. Or about anything personal. I replied, why were you talking to her? He responded casually. She called, said you seemed distant lately. My stomach dropped. I never asked her to call him. I never told her anything was wrong. I wish I had confronted her then. I wish I had asked direct questions. But instead, I did what I had always done. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Because I still believed sisters couldn't compete for identity. I didn't know yet that the real betrayal hadn't even started. And the next thing Lena would do wouldn't feel like imitation anymore. It would feel like replacement. After that phone call with Daniel, I tried to ignore the discomfort. I told myself it was coincidence. Lena was social. People liked her. Of course, she'd connect with my boyfriend and friends. That's what healthy families looked like, right? But something changed inside me after that moment. I started noticing patterns. Not dramatic ones. Small shifts. The kind you almost convince yourself aren't real. Friday nights used to belong to my friend group. 6 of us, same restaurant rotation, same inside jokes. It was my safe space. One week, I invited Lena along because she said she felt lonely. Everyone adored her immediately. She told funny childhood stories. Self-deprecating jokes. She had a way of making people feel like they'd known her forever. I felt proud watching her fit in. Until the next Friday. My friend Mia texted, dinner tonight, Lena said you might be late. I stared at the message. I hadn't spoken to Lena about dinner. And I wasn't late. I was never late. When I arrived, she was already there. Sitting in my usual seat. Talking animatedly. No one thought it was strange. Why would they? She belonged now. At first it seemed harmless. Then I noticed something unsettling. When people needed emotional advice, they called Lena. When plans were organized, Lena coordinated them. Group chats slowly shifted tone. Inside jokes referenced conversations I hadn't been part of. Once Mia casually said, you and Lena balance each other so well. She's the emotional one, you're the practical one. I smiled. But inside, something twisted. Because lately, I felt like the background character in friendships I had built. The real crack appeared during brunch one Sunday. Everyone was laughing about dating disasters. Mia turned to Lena and asked, what was Elena like before Daniel? Lena laughed lightly. Oh, she used to push people away a lot. She's scared of intimacy. The table nodded thoughtfully. I blinked. That wasn't true. I had ended one long relationship years ago, respectfully, calmly. But Lena continued. She pretends she's independent, but she actually needs reassurance constantly. People looked at me with sympathetic smiles. I felt exposed, like a personality profile had been written about me without my consent. I tried to correct it gently. I don't think that's accurate. Lena squeezed my arm playfully. See, she hates talking about feelings. Everyone laughed again. A few weeks later, I noticed Lena posting photos from gatherings before I even had time to upload mine. Same angles, same caption style, but hers always performed better. More comments, more reactions. People started tagging her when referencing events I organized. Once someone commented under her post, "You're the glue of this friend group read." I read it 3 times. I had been that person for years. Yet correcting it felt childish. So I stayed quiet, and silence slowly erased my role. Daniel began mentioning Lena more frequently. "Your sister gave me great advice about work. Lena thinks you've been stressed lately. Lena said you might need space." Every time he said her name, something tightened in my chest. Not jealousy. Displacement. It felt like emotional conversations about me were happening, without me. One evening I asked casually, "Do you talk to Lena often?" He shrugged. "She checks in sometimes. She's easy to talk to." Easy. That word echoed. Because relationships take effort. But Lena had positioned herself as effortless understanding. My friend Chris hosted a birthday party. I arrived expecting familiarity. Instead, I walked into a room already orbiting around Lena. She was telling a story, again about me, describing how I overthink everything. People laughed knowingly. Someone said, "Yeah, Lena explains you really well." Explains me. As if I needed interpretation. I felt invisible standing there. Later that night, I overheard something that made my stomach drop. Chris asked Lena quietly, "Do you think Alina even likes us? She seems distant sometimes." Lena sighed sympathetically. "She struggles with connection. I try to help people understand her." I froze behind the hallway wall. Help people understand me. Or redefine me. Driving home that night, I replayed every interaction. Every joke. Every harmless correction she made about my personality. A pattern emerged. Whenever I appeared strong, she softened me. I finally brought it up. Carefully. Non-accusing. "I feel like sometimes you speak for me in social situations." She looked genuinely hurt. "I'm just helping people understand you." "I don't need interpretation," I said gently. Her expression shifted. Subtle. Cold for half a second. Then warm again. "You've always been sensitive about how people see you." "No, I don't," I said. "What did you tell Daniel about me?" I asked. She paused for a moment and looked at me smiling. "Oh, we just talk casually. He's like another version of you. He's just worried about you. That's what we talk about." She replied calmly like no big deal. The conversation ended there. But afterward, friends became slightly cooler toward me. Messages shorter. Invitations less frequent. And I couldn't prove why. A week later, Mia hosted a movie night. I wasn't invited. I found out through Instagram stories. Everyone was there, including Lena. When I asked Mia casually about it later, she said, "Oh, Lena thought you were busy." I never said I was busy. That was the moment denial finally cracked. This wasn't coincidence. Information about me was being filtered through her. Access to my own relationships passed through my sister first. The hardest part wasn't anger. It was confusion. Because Lena still hugged me warmly. Still texted heart emojis. Still said she loved me. There was no obvious cruelty. just a quiet rearranging of social gravity. And I started questioning myself. Was I distant? Was I hard to understand? Was she actually helping me socially? Gaslighting doesn't always sound like lies. Sometimes it sounds like concern. One evening, my mom said something casually during dinner. "You're lucky Lena keeps everyone connected. She's very emotionally intelligent." I forced a smile. But inside, something settled heavily. Even my own family now viewed her as the emotional bridge, and me as the complicated one. The narrative had spread further than I realized. And I still didn't understand the end goal. Because at that point, I thought she wanted closeness. I didn't yet realize she was positioning herself somewhere much deeper. Somewhere that would soon affect the most personal relationship in my life. A few nights later, Daniel canceled plans with me. He said he needed space. Said he felt emotionally confused about our relationship. And then he added one sentence I will never forget. "Lena thinks we might not be compatible long-term." I sat there holding my phone, stunned. Because I hadn't been arguing with my boyfriend. I had been unknowingly competing with my sister. And the next thing she did would make it impossible to pretend anymore that this was admiration. It was something else entirely. After Daniel mentioned Lena's opinion about our compatibility, something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not jealousy. Fear. Because relationships usually break from arguments, distance, or obvious problems. But Daniel and I hadn't been fighting. We weren't unhappy. Yet suddenly, he seemed uncertain about me. And every doubt he expressed sounded strangely familiar. Like words I had heard before. Just spoken in a different voice. Daniel started asking questions that confused me. Do you feel emotionally disconnected sometimes? Do you struggle with vulnerability? Are you secretly unhappy with me? I stared at him. None of these issues had ever come up between us. I asked carefully, "Why do you think that?" Then said quietly, "Lena noticed some things." I frowned immediately. "Can you put Lena aside and see me for myself?" He was surprised. "See, that's what Lena told me about." You jump to conclusions without understanding. And she's your sister, not your enemy, for God's sake. He said in disappointment. My stomach dropped. I didn't react then. I didn't want to sound defensive. But something finally became clear. My sister wasn't just present in my social life anymore. She was present inside my relationship. I started overcompensating. More affectionate texts. More check-ins. More emotional openness. I tried to prove I wasn't distant, cold, or difficult, the version of me Lena seemed to describe. But the harder I tried, the more unsure Daniel became. He started interpreting normal moments as problems. If I needed quiet after work, it meant I was withdrawing. If I disagreed calmly, it meant I avoided emotional intimacy. It felt like I was being evaluated against a personality profile I didn't recognize. Lena began appearing more frequently during our time together. Group coffee, casual dinners, movie nights that somehow included her, even when plans started as dates. She never forced herself in. She just arrived naturally. Daniel appreciated her perspective. She understands people well, he said once. I watched them laughing together across the table, sharing inside jokes formed from conversations I wasn't part of. Was I becoming the third person in my own relationship? One evening, Daniel admitted something casually. I talked to Lena when we had that small disagreement last week. I felt my chest tighten. What disagreement? The one where you seemed irritated. I barely remembered it. A minor scheduling mix-up resolved in minutes. But Lena had turned it into a discussion about relationship patterns. She said you sometimes shut down emotionally when stressed. he explained. I sat very still, because I hadn't shut down. I had simply been tired. But now that moment had meaning attached to it. Analysis, interpretation, diagnosis. And none of it came from me. Listen, Daniel, I think we shouldn't discuss our relation with others. I said gently, both of us. He gazed at me. Elena, what's wrong? Do you feel insecure towards your sister? She cares about you. I was stunned with his words. Insecure, me, towards my sister. Where is this coming from? I couldn't speak further. He just instructed me to get some rest and clear my mind and left. While our plan for a beautiful dinner was ruined by this conversation. I couldn't understand what's happening. Why everything I say becomes instantly a problem, and what Lena says becomes correct. We attended a friend's engagement party together. I went to grab drinks, leaving Daniel and Lena talking. When I returned, they were deep in conversation. Daniel looked thoughtful, almost vulnerable. I heard him say quietly, "You understand things about Elena I struggle to explain." Lena smiled gently. "She's complicated. I've learned how to read her." I froze, because suddenly it felt like she knew me better in his eyes than I knew myself. I walked toward them, forcing a smile. But something inside me shifted permanently. I wasn't imagining this anymore. She wasn't copying my life. She was positioning her. A week later, Daniel and I had our first real conflict. He said he felt unsure about our future. That he worried I wasn't emotionally available long-term. I asked softly, "Is this how you feel, or something you've been told?" He looked uncomfortable. "I just want honesty." That answer told me everything without saying it directly. Someone else's voice had become part of our relationship dialogue. And I was fighting an influence I couldn't confront openly without sounding paranoid. After that argument, Daniel asked for a few days of space. I respected it. 2 days later, I saw Lena's Instagram story. A coffee shop. 2 cups. His hand visible across the table. My heart dropped. I didn't panic. I told myself they were just talking. But something about it felt deeply wrong. Not betrayal yet. Something quieter. Something emotional. Like she had stepped into a role meant for me. When Daniel finally came over to talk, he looked exhausted. He said he felt torn, confused about our emotional compatibility. And then he said a sentence that still echoes in my memory. "Lena understands me in ways you don't." The room went silent. I wasn't angry. I was stunned. Because I had introduced them. I had trusted that closeness. And now I felt compared to my own sister inside my relationship. I asked carefully, "Are you developing feelings for her?" He shook his head immediately. "No, it's not like that." But his hesitation afterward said more than his words. "Daniel, listen, I love you, you know that, right?" I said sweetly. But his answer surprised me. "Are you sure, Elena, because lately I feel like I am your least favorite thing." I froze. "No, Daniel, listen, you can take as much time as you want. But know this, I never lied to you, never kept anything from you. I have always been open to you emotionally." I almost cried when I said it, voice shaken. He looked at me like he believed every word. For a few moments, but then he realized something and shook his head. "I am sorry, Elena, I am not sure." He left me like this. That night, I sat alone replaying the past year. The copying. The storytelling. The social shifts. The reinterpretation of my personality. And now, emotional intimacy forming between them through conversations about me. I finally allowed myself to ask a question I had avoided for years. What if Lena didn't want my life because she admired it? What if she wanted it because she believed she deserved it more? At a family dinner soon after, I watched Lena closely for the first time. She laughed easily, listened attentively, told stories that subtly centered her as the emotionally perceptive one. Everyone leaned toward her when speaking, even my parents. I noticed how often she finished my sentences, corrected small details about me, spoke as if she carried insider knowledge. And no one questioned it, because she delivered it with warmth, concern, care. Manipulation rarely looks hostile. Sometimes it looks like understanding. A few nights later, Daniel called. His voice was heavy. He said he needed to reconsider our relationship, that he felt unsure about long-term compatibility. I asked one question. Did you talk to Lena before calling me? Silence. Then quietly. Yes. Something inside me finally broke open. Not heartbreak. Recognition. I wasn't losing my relationship because it failed. I was losing it because someone else had been shaping it from the inside. That yes was heavier than everything else in that moment. I instantly realized I can't make him come back from the path of distrust he has taken. So I said gently, then it's over, Daniel. You're viewing me from someone else's lens. He didn't speak. I hung up. After we ended things, I expected Lena to comfort me. Instead, she seemed strangely calm, almost relieved. And 2 weeks later, I learned something that made every moment of the past year fall into place. Daniel and Lena had started spending time together, alone. And the next discovery would force me to confront a truth. Normally, Lena rushed in during emotional moments. Breakups, work stress, bad days. She loved being the supportive sister. But this time, she stayed distant. She texted once. I'm here if you need me, red heart. That was it. No late-night call. No long conversation. No emotional deep dive. Almost like she already knew I would be okay. Or worse, like she wasn't surprised at all. The first rumor. About 10 days after the breakup, Mia called me. Her voice sounded hesitant. Hey, I didn't want you to hear this from someone else. My stomach tightened instantly. She told me she had seen Lena and Daniel having coffee together. Alone. Not secretly. Just comfortably. Like two people who had already built familiarity. I laughed awkwardly, almost for my own comfort. They're probably just talking. She helped him understand me. Even as I said it, the words felt hollow. I don't think so. I feel like they ray together now. She replied in a soft tone. I looked at her, she was worried. I am sorry, Alina. Past few weeks we've been a bit distant. But this doesn't seem right at all. I am here for you. She hugged me. Part of me was not even surprised. I was just in denial because she was my sister. Suddenly, I realized something painful. Lena knew every vulnerability Daniel had expressed during our relationship. She had heard his doubts, his fears, his emotional needs. She knew exactly how to step into the space I had just left. I still kept telling myself this must not be true. I opened Instagram late at night. And there it was. A group photo from a small gathering. Daniel smiling. Lena beside him. Close. Not romantic. But comfortable in a way that felt intimate. Smiling at each other with fully glanced. Full of life, happiness. The caption read, "Good conversations with good people." Comments flooded underneath. You two seem like siblings already. You guys get along so well. I stared at the screen. Because months earlier, those comments had been about me and Daniel. The same dynamic. The same energy. Just transferred. I cried that night. Yes, Emmy. The composed, mature one. the emotionally stable one. Because it was betrayal from my sister and my boyfriend both. Lena called me a few times late at night. I didn't want to talk. I had that anger inside me that I never felt before. I felt like a glass, very gently tilted down and broken into 1,000 pieces. And I didn't even know where to find and collect those pieces from. I was vulnerable, shaken, torn. No one announced anything. No one admitted anything, which made it worse. Soon, I noticed something subtle but devastating. Friends stopped checking in about my breakup. Instead, they talked about Lena. How is she handling everything? She's been helping Daniel a lot. Helping him. I sat there, realizing the emotional narrative had flipped. I was no longer the person recovering from loss. I was the past. She was the present. The family shift. At a Sunday dinner, my mother mentioned casually, Lena and Daniel ran into us at the market yesterday. I looked up sharply. Oh. They were just talking, Mom added quickly. He seems like such a nice young man. No one looked uncomfortable. No one questioned it. Because Lena had normalized her closeness to him long before the breakup happened. To everyone else, this transition felt natural. Only I knew how long the groundwork had been laid. One afternoon, I met a mutual friend for coffee. She hesitated before speaking. I hope you don't take this the wrong way. I already knew I would. She continued carefully. Daniel seems happier lately. Lena really understands him. The sentence hit harder than the breakup itself. I quickly get angry. And your point is, I said. She got defensive. Woo, calm down. I am just telling what I saw. Well, you better not. I said angrily. I didn't know what got over me. For years, I had interpreted Lena's behavior as admiration. Then insecurity. Then coincidence. But now a pattern stretched clearly across my life. She entered spaces after I built them. Bonded with people after I introduced them. Learned emotional details about my relationships. And then stepped into those connections herself. Not stealing suddenly. Replacing gradually. And the realization hurt in a very specific way. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. I asked Lena to meet me. Just the two of us. No family. No friends. No audience. We sat across from each other at a quiet cafe. She smiled warmly. You look better, she said. I didn't smile back. I asked calmly, are you getting close to Daniel? She paused. Only for a second. Then she said carefully, we're just friends. The wording felt precise. You couldn't keep your friendship till I got better. You didn't even came to see me after. I said broken. Oh, Elena, it's not what you were thinking. He just contacted me after the breakup. He was really upset. She said, and what about me, Lena Ure, my sister? How could you do this to me? She nodded gently. Elena, don't misread me. I was just helping like I used to do when you mess up things socially. I looked at her surprised. What did you just say? I frowned. She continued. I know it must be hard for you. I am sorry it happened. I hope you'll get better. It's for the best. Before we left, she added gently. You and Daniel weren't right for each other. Sometimes people just connect better. Connect better. The words sounded kind. Supportive. But underneath them was an unspoken message. I fit where you didn't. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like her older sister. I felt like a prototype she had outgrown.
To good
3 weeks
conversations
later,
with good people.
I
Cheers.
received a message from a mutual friend that made my hands shake. A photo.
Vibes.
Daniel
Daniel and
Lena
Lena had started spending
holding
time
hands.
together, alone.
And suddenly,
And the
Every
next
year of my
discovery
life
would force me to
rearranged itself into one
the next discovery
terrifying
would force me to
realization.
confront a truth I had spent my
This
entire
hadn't
life
started
avoiding.
after my
My
breakup.
sister didn't just want parts of
It
my
had been
life. She
unfolding
wanted to
while
become
we were
me.
still together. I stared at the picture for a long time.
You look
Daniel
better.
and Lena walking through a park. The kind of intimacy
Started dressing
that
in
doesn't
softer
happen
neutral
overnight.
tones, my usual style.
My
Even
first
adopted
reaction
small
was
habits I
anger.
was known for. Morning runs, reading
recognition.
cafes, quiet weekend
I
routines.
didn't cry immediately. Instead, memories replayed differently now that I understood the ending. Every time Daniel questioned my emotions, every moment Lena translated me for others, every gathering where she positioned herself as the person who understood everyone better. It wasn't coincidence. It was preparation. She never took my life by force. She waited until people believed she belonged in it. 2 days later, my mother called. Her voice sounded cautious. I wanted you to hear this gently. Lena and Daniel are seeing each other. Mom continued quickly. I didn't approve this, but Lena says they didn't plan it, just happened. That sentence almost made me laugh. Lena texted asking to meet. I ignored. She texted again like nothing had happened. Hey, can we talk? I miss you. We met at the same cafe parking lot where I had confronted her weeks earlier. She looked nervous this time. I didn't sit down. I didn't even say hi properly. I didn't want you to find out like that, she began. I listened quietly. She explained how Daniel and her connection deepened after my breakup, how they supported each other, how neither meant to hurt me. Her words sounded careful, reasonable, but they avoided one truth. So I asked furiously, because I couldn't take the lies anymore. Do you even hear yourself anymore? She blinked. Elena. No, I cut her off. You don't get to say my name like everything is normal. Her smile faded. I stepped closer. You told Daniel I was emotionally unavailable. You told my friends I was distant. You told people I was hard to understand, like you're some kind of translator for me. She opened her mouth. I didn't let her. No, listen. Her expression finally changed. Still defensive, but softer. I never meant to hurt you. That's when I laughed. Not funny laugh. More like disbelief. You don't accidentally become the main character in someone else's life, Lena. Silence. I could feel my chest burning now. All the built-up confusion, embarrassment, anger. You don't accidentally sit in my relationships. You don't accidentally explain me to my boyfriend like I'm some case study. My voice cracked slightly. But you did it anyway. How could you? I stepped back. You wanted my life so badly. You stopped seeing me as your sister and started seeing me as something to become. That landed. Hard. For the first time, she didn't interrupt. Didn't defend. Just stood there. She was surprised I finally said it out loud. I took a breath. Wiped my face quickly before I even realized I was tearing up. Then I said quietly, I'm done being misrepresented by you. For once, I didn't hold back. Everything I had felt for months was out in the open. I expected anger, defensiveness, something. But Lena just looked at me and smiled. Not nervous, not guilty, almost amused. Then she let out a small laugh. Like I had just said something dramatic instead of real. Elena, she said, shaking her head slightly. You're really overreacting right now. That sentence hit harder than anything else. She kept going, casually. It's not that deep. Daniel didn't leave you because of me. He left because, let's be honest, you couldn't keep him interested. Silence. Real silence. The kind where your brain takes a second to process what you just heard. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back. She didn't. Instead, she sighed, like I was being difficult. You always do this. You turn everything into a tragedy. Something inside me just snapped. Not emotional anymore. Not confused. Just done. I didn't think. My hand moved before my mind caught up. The sound cracked through the air. Sharp. Instant. Yes, I slapped her hard. Even I froze for half a second after it happened. Lena's head turned slightly with the impact. She touched her cheek slowly, then looked back at me. No tears. No shock. Just disbelief, turning into irritation. You're insane, she said quietly. And honestly, once the shock wore off, I wasn't devastated anymore. I was done. Completely done. I completely cut ties with her, not attending mutual friends' gatherings. No call, no message, no response. I needed to regain control of my life that I let slipped away. Because of family and love. My mom often called me to check in. Love, how you are holding up. I would just say, everything is fine, Mom, the usual work stuff. I avoided talking about it. A few weeks later, my parents hosted a family dinner. First time I'd see Lena and Daniel together as a couple. I almost didn't go. But then I thought, why should I be the one hiding? So I showed up looking good. Not revenge dress good. Just peaceful good. Hair done, confidence calm, energy different. And the second I walked in, the room shifted. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't scanning Lena for approval. I wasn't managing anyone's emotions. I was just existing. Daniel looked uncomfortable and surprised. Lena looked careless, like she has won something. Dinner started normal. Small talk, food passing, forced laughter. Then my aunt asked casually, "So how did you two start dating?" Silence. Real awkward silence. Daniel barely met my eyes. And honestly, that told me more than words ever could. Because there is no clean answer to that question when emotional lines blur before a breakup. Lena started explaining quickly. It just happened naturally. And without even planning to, I smiled and said lightly, "Yeah, they got really close while I was still dating him." I took a sip of water like I had said something completely ordinary. Because to me, it was ordinary. Just reality. My mom blinked. My aunt shifted uncomfortably. Daniel cleared his throat but didn't speak. Just stated a fact. The table went quiet. Lena laughed softly, trying to recover. Well, it wasn't like that, she rushed to explain. I nodded sweetly. Oh, I know, I said. Nobody wakes up planning to date their sister's boyfriend. I smiled at her, 'cause I wasn't done. I sipped my drink like we were discussing the weather. It's funny though, I added lightly. I didn't even realize I was competing with my own sister. The air shifted. Lena's posture stiffened. Elena, she warned softly. But I continued, casually. No, it's okay, I said. We're family, we can be honest. Then I turned back to my aunt. I honestly thought Lena was helping me through relationship problems. Pause. I didn't know she was auditioning for the role. Daniel inhaled sharply. I talked the same way Lena would talk to Charm Everone. It was just one of those situations where emotional conversations started happening before anyone realized boundaries were changing. Daniel stared down at his plate. Lena's smile tightened. Lena laughed awkwardly. That's not fair. I smiled gently. You're right, I said. It wasn't fair. I just wish someone had told me earlier that my own sister felt threatened enough to step into my relationship. The words landed softly, but they hit like glass breaking. My father set his fork down slowly. What do you mean? He asked. I shrugged. No drama, I said. I just noticed that every time Daniel and I had an issue, somehow Lena already knew about it, already had opinions, already understood him better than I did. Daniel looked sick. Lena stared at me, eyes wide. I continued gently. I thought she was supporting me. Turns out she was building emotional intimacy with him at the same time. Just facts. Silence deepened. Lena's voice sharpened. You're making it sound intentional. I tilted my head slightly. I don't know if it was intentional, I said calmly. But it takes effort to get that close to your sister's boyfriend. I leaned back in my chair. Relaxed. Unbothered. Lena's face flushed. That's not true. I smiled softly. Maybe not consciously, I said. But insecurity makes people do strange things. Daniel tried to speak. We never wanted to hurt you. I turned to him calmly. I believe you, I said. But you still chose emotional comfort with someone else while we were together. He had no response. Because suddenly the story she'd been telling everyone, the clean version, didn't fit anymore. And the powerful thing was, I was freeing myself from protecting them. My mom finally spoke carefully. Elena, why didn't you say anything before? I shrugged. Because I loved both of them, I said honestly. I didn't want to believe my sister could hurt me like that. And for the first time since everything happened, I wasn't the girl who lost her boyfriend. I was the woman who finally told the truth. Dinner continued after that. But the energy never recovered. Because the illusion was gone. Before leaving my parents' home, I said loudly to Lena. I said something that surprised even me. I think you've been trying to live beside me for so long. You forgot to build something that was only yours. She looked stunned. I was finally stepping out of comparison entirely. And that realization brought unexpected peace. For years, I believed Lena wanted to support me. But the truth felt more complicated. She wanted my certainty, my stability, my relationships, the version of life that looked secure from the outside. And instead of building her own identity, she learned how to inhabit mine. I stated focusing on life again, keeping the same cutoff from my parents and Lena. Friends reacted awkwardly at first. Some avoided the topic. Others quietly admitted they had noticed Lena's influence long before I did. One friend said gently, she always seemed to know exactly how to position herself. That sentence validated something I had struggled to explain even to myself. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't insecure. I had simply trusted too fully. I stopped sharing every detail of my life online. Stopped introducing people into my inner world too quickly. Started asking myself a question I had never asked before. What do I want when no one is watching? I traveled alone for the first time. Tried hobbies I never discussed with family. Made friends who knew me independently of my sister. And slowly, something powerful happened. My life began to feel like mine again. Not a template. Not a comparison. Just mine. About 8 months later, I heard through Mia that Lena and Daniel were struggling. Just friction. Misunderstandings. Different expectations. And I realized something important. Relationships built on comparison eventually run out of reference points. I was their center of connection. Lena targeted me as a tool to win Daniel's emotions. And once I was out, they have to face each other honestly. And honesty requires identity. I believe she still does not love him. She just wanted him, to have him as a challenge to win from me. Because genuine connections and love doesn't force itself. It builds through clarity. After that news, Daniel called me one day. Can we talk? We met at a small coffee shop downtown. Neutral ground. No memories attached. He looked nervous the second I walked in. Like he already knew this conversation wouldn't go the way he hoped. After small talk died out, he finally said, "I think I made mistakes." I nodded. "Yeah, you did." No softness. No anger. Just truth. He looked surprised I didn't comfort him. "I feel like I misunderstood you," he continued. "Lena helped me see things differently." I leaned forward slightly and said, "Daniel, you didn't misunderstand me." He frowned. "You chose to believe someone else's interpretation of me instead of talking to me directly. You let my sister explain my personality to you," I continued calmly. "You trusted her emotional analysis more than the relationship you were actually in." "I kept trying to fix problems that didn't even exist," I said. "I thought we were growing apart, but really, someone else was slowly stepping between us." He rubbed his face. "I never meant for that to happen." "I know," I said, "but intent doesn't erase impact." That landed. Hard. Then, I said the part I had needed to say for months. "You didn't leave me because we were incompatible. You left because Lena made you feel understood without requiring accountability." He asked quietly, "Do you hate me?" I shook my head. "No, I just see you clearly now. You don't matter to me anymore." He looked like he wanted another chance. Like he expected nostalgia to pull me back. But instead I smiled gently and said, "I hope you figure out who you are without needing someone to interpret the woman you're dating." That sentence closed the chapter. Completely. I stood up first, and walking out of that cafe felt like stepping out of a story that had finally ended. If you've ever felt replaced, misunderstood, or slowly pushed out of spaces you helped build, I want you to remember this. Being copied doesn't mean you're losing. It means you were original enough to inspire imitation.